It's my great pleasure as President and Vice-Chancellor to welcome you all to Foundation Day 2015, one of the most important events in our calendar, marking the inauguration of the University of Manchester in 2004. This year's Foundation Day celebrations are particularly special because they include the installation of our Chancellor, Mr. Lemn Sissay. I will deliver the foundation address, then we will confer honorary doctorates on our remarkable graduates, including Lemn. My welcome is also offered on behalf of our Pro-Chancellors, Mr. Anil Ruhr, Chairman of our Board of Governors, and Mrs. Gillian Eason, together with other members of our board. I'm delighted that we have two of our former Chancellors, Anna Ford and Tom Bloxham, here for this occasion. And I want to pay tribute to Anna, Tom, and other past Chancellors for their fantastic contribution to the university. Heartfelt thanks. The Lord Lieutenant of Greater Manchester, Mr. Warren Smith, the Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress, and the Honorary Recorder, Judge David Stockdale, are here as civic guests. I also welcome our special guests, His Excellency, the Ethiopian Ambassador to the UK, Bahanu Kabeda, and his guest, and the Chinese Consul General Li and his wife. And we are delighted that members of our North American Foundation and our Global Leadership Board have travelled, in some cases long distances, to be with us today. You're all welcome. The four eminent people designated as the founders of the university, Professor Sir Martin Harris, Professor Tom Hinchcliffe, Professor John Garside, and Dr. Roger Pannoni, are also with us today. In welcoming our founders to another Foundation Day, we acknowledge that our presence here was made possible by the vision and courage each of you shared with many other builders of this university over the crucial years from 2002 to 2004. I also really appreciate our staff and student musicians and the choir here today from across the university. I know how hard you've worked to ensure that the music for these celebrations is truly befitting. The Foundation Day Declaration, which is printed in your programme, sums up our university's values. As the Foundation Day speaker on this occasion, I'll sign the declaration and invite the founders and honorary graduates and our newly installed Chancellor to witness the signing. In so doing, I'll reaffirm our commitment to the transformational vision, aspirations, values, goals, strategies and targets of Manchester 2020. You all have a copy of the refreshed version, and I'll say a little bit more about Manchester 2020 in a moment. Today, as well as honouring Lemn Sissay with an honorary doctorate before his installation, we're not going to ask him to give an honorary doctorate to himself. We will also honour Baroness Joan Bakewell, Dame Athene Donald, Sir Nicholas Heitner, and Dame Janet Smith. Congratulations to you all. After the foundation address, I will invite the Registrar and Secretary to escort Lemn onto the platform. Professor Jeanette Winterson will then present Lemn for his honorary degree. I will then formally install Lemn as Chancellor, and he will give his reply. After he becomes Chancellor, he will also then become the presiding officer for the conferment of the remaining honorary degrees. We're delighted that Dame Janet Smith will reply on behalf of all the honorary graduates, including the Chancellor. And the Chancellor will then formally bring the ceremony to a close. So let me begin my Foundation Day address by showing you a short film that we sent to all our new students who arrived a few weeks ago to welcome them to the university and to tell them a little about us.
Now is the turning point of your life. Trepidation lingers as the familiar disappears, but embrace it. Revel in the tangled anxiety of the unknown. Great things await those that go in search. Manchester, this great city of trailblazing innovation, where revolutions find their heart and culture finds its soul, will subvert your expectations in the years approaching. These are the years where you'll discover who you are, the years where you'll start tackling society's biggest challenges and begin to make a difference to the world and the people around us. And if there's one thing we can guarantee, you too will change. You will grow. You're coming to a place that enables, empowers, inspires. A place that helps you realise the dreams that are sown here. Where your journey will intertwine and align with the paths of others. Where the friendships you'll forge will last a lifetime. Here is a place where you'll grow to stand shoulder to shoulder with giants, side by side with friends. Break conventions, discover new ways of being curious, carve your own path. Pioneer your way of doing things because your way is the Manchester way. Whether you're coming from near or far, welcome to the University of Manchester.
A sentence that particularly resonates from that film is a place where revolutions find their heart and culture finds its soul. Manchester was, of course, very much at the heart of the Industrial Revolution, devising new machines, building steam railways, and creating one of the world's first modern canal systems. But Manchester has been home not just to pioneers or industrial magnates, but also to social revolutionaries. The Chartist movement burgeoned in Manchester and the first trade unions. Vegetarianism, public libraries, the suffragette movement all began here. Engels met with Marx and developed his social ideas in Manchester's Albert Club just over there on the site of our new National Graphene Institute. As Disraeli reportedly said, what Manchester does today, the rest of the world does tomorrow. This university was born out of this revolutionary spirit and is proud to share the heritage. And we have continued with an ambitious and challenging vision and plan, particularly since 2004. When I was appointed as President and Vice-Chancellor in 2010, I was determined to maintain this revolutionary spirit and ambition, while taking account of the fact that we were in a very different world from that in 2004. Hence, we established Manchester 2020, describing our three core goals and underpinning themes. Today, we formally launch a refreshed and updated Manchester 2020. This builds on our original plan and sets new demanding targets that continue to take account of the many changes that have taken place over the past decade across society and the higher education sector. And it also recognises our likely future challenges. Foundation Day is a time to reflect on achievements of the past and on our ambitions and challenges for the future. There is no doubt that British universities face significant pressures from increasingly intense international competition in research and education, from growing costs, from marked changes in global economies, and from the government's comprehensive spending review, which will be announced next month. But this is a day of celebration, so I think it's appropriate to focus on our successes and future opportunities. In spite of some challenges, we have in fact met a number of the ambitious goals we first set out in 2004. We've more than doubled our external research and contract income, increased our gift income by tenfold, markedly improved student satisfaction, increased graduate employment from 67% in 2004 to over 85% today. We've enhanced collaboration with industry. We have more income from UK industry than any other British university. We've transformed our campus, attracted world-leading scholars, and significantly increased the number of students from less privileged backgrounds. Just in the last year, our competitive research income increased by more than 20%. We had more applications for undergraduate study than any other UK university. Several spectacular new buildings were open. Jodrell Bank was designated the international headquarters of the Square Kilometre Array, the world's largest scientific collaborative project, and for the first time, our income topped £1 billion. Continued ambition is essential for our future success. But with finite resource, we must focus on our strengths if we are to be a great rather than just a good university. With thousands of universities across the world, and well over 100 in the UK alone, we need to clearly explain what is truly distinctive about our research, our graduates, our influence, and our impact. International recognition and engagement is an ever more important measure of our success. Our popularity with international students, we now have over 10,000 more than any other UK university, is one reflection of our global reputation, creating a truly international campus in a very diverse city. The vibrancy and regeneration of the city and the University of Manchester and our imaginative plans are indeed putting us on the world radar. Our university, our discoveries, and our spin-out successes are attracting interests and investments of business and universities from China, the Middle East, the United States, and Australia, to name but a few. This university shares much in common with its host city and benefits greatly from our shared ambition. The Victoria University of Manchester was one of the first red bricks, reshaping a formerly elitist model of higher education and widening it for ordinary people of all backgrounds. Today, this is still true. Social responsibility is one of our 3 goals, and it's manifest in our key activities. In Moss Side and in local communities, we've created The Works, which has supported more than 3,500 people to find employment and training at the university and with other local employers. Our school governance programme, working with 160 schools across the region, has won national and international awards. Our social responsibility policies are also realised in our major campus redevelopment. It's a condition of procurement that architects and builders must employ a high percentage of local people and take on apprentices. Many of these activities are in close partnership with our Students' Union. Great examples of this partnership are student volunteering and the award-winning We Get It campaign to raise awareness and to tackle all forms of harassment, and this has recently received significant acclaim in the press. Equality and diversity are important commitments of the university. Recently, we were one of a handful of universities to be awarded the Race Equality Charter mark. We've made progress in diversity in our leadership. If you consider the chair of our board, Anil Rua, myself, as still one of rather few female vice-chancellors, the General Secretary of the Students' Union, Nar Aqua, and of course, our Chancellor. But as the university that appointed the first black professor in the UK, the economist Arthur Lewis, we still have a lot more to do to increase diversity amongst staff and are working to deliver the plans that we described in our race charter. Our activities impact on many of our closest neighbours, which represent some of the least advantaged communities in the country. Hence, the university is a major contributor to the social as well as the economic growth of the city, and is also contributing to the physical transformation of Manchester. Over the last decade, the university has metamorphosed into a 21st century vibrant space of glass and steel, sitting alongside some of our beautiful and carefully restored older buildings, and ever-growing public spaces, walkways, and greenery. We are bringing our staff and students together onto the Oxford Road by relocating from the North Campus as part of our £1 billion plus campus master plan. Soon you will be able to stroll down a car-free Oxford Road with wider pavements and tree-lined boulevards. You can already visit our Whitworth Gallery, just recently designated Museum of the Year in 2015 and shortlisted for the Sterling Prize. Decision tomorrow. The Whitworth combines the revolutionary qualities of Manchester, a classical Victorian frontage and a visionary glass back, free to all and built in the heart of the community. We're planning a multi-million-pound new student village and a new hotel behind the Manchester Business School, which itself is undergoing a major refurbishment, supported by a very generous donation from Lord Alliance. Hence, our MBS is now named the Alliance Manchester Business School. But a university is very much more than a stunning campus. We're also committed to being a people-oriented organisation, supporting our staff and providing an outstanding experience for our students, the largest on-campus population of students in the country. Our efforts have been rewarded with improved student satisfaction scores, but we still have more to do to achieve our aim of 90% satisfaction across all of our students. We're the most popular university for undergraduate study and the most targeted university by Britain's top graduate employers. We're now going to deliver a new targeted approach to student experience, offering our students an integrated scheme that allows them to take advantage of a range of programs outside their own degree, to be called the My Manchester Award. This will include activities such as international study, social responsibility projects, training in leadership and entrepreneurship, volunteering and internships. So students will experience real-world challenges as soon as they join us. We believe that this will provide the ingredients to make the student experience at Manchester truly distinctive and transformative. When our students graduate, they become lifelong members of the university as they join our community of over 300,000 alumni across the world. Many of these alumni are outstanding supporters of the university through philanthropy and by generously giving their time to help our students, particularly those from less advantaged backgrounds. Amongst those alumni are many honorary graduates, selected because of their great achievements and contributions to society. We're delighted to be honouring 5 more today. World-class research, which includes the discovery of new knowledge and its application, is fundamental to our university. It is the main driver of international reputation. We aspire to be in the top 25 universities in the world. We've progressed from being in the low 70s in 2004 to now in the low 40s. And we are in the top 5 in the UK. Progress is encouraging, but we have much more to do to achieve our ambitious goal, which is outlined in the plans of our new research strategy. But rankings and league tables tell us only one part of the story, and they don't define who we are or the impact of our research. When Alan Turing created the first calculating machine at the root of future digital technology, or Ernest Rutherford split the atom to redefine modern physics, or Marie Stopes transformed the lives of women and families, they were not motivated by breaking records, league tables, or fame. They wanted to solve fundamental problems in society and to revolutionize progress. Among the huge range of excellent research in the university, we've identified 5 focus areas, 5 beacons of research. Each is an area of excellence for the university with both depth and breadth, which also represents a global challenge. I'll just give you a few brief words on these. Our first is advanced materials. Manchester was built on a material, cotton, put it at the centre of the trading world. Graphene has the potential to be even more revolutionary as the world's thinnest, strongest, and most conductive material. Andrei Geim and Kostya Novoselov isolated graphene in Manchester and won the Nobel Prize in 2010. Its potential is huge in sensors, transport, filters, biomedicine, to name but a few. The National Graphene Lab Institute, a stunning super lab, has already stimulated public and private financing and attracted scholars from around the world. We're now building the Graphene Engineering Innovation Centre, the GEEK, with significant international investment. We were selected by BP as the home to their International Centre for Advanced Materials and have a renowned materials characterization facility. In December 2014, the Chancellor, George Osborne, announced a £250 million investment in the Sir Henry Royce Institute for Materials and Research and Innovation, to be based in Manchester, but in close partnership with several other leading UK universities. The Chancellor described it as one of the most significant science centres in the UK. Our second and third beacons are also rooted in industry and innovation. They are industrial biotechnology and energy, both appropriate for a city whose wealth came from steam that powered the cotton mills and the Liverpool to Manchester railway and ship canal. Our leading biotechnology centre is at the forefront of a European industrial renaissance, creating the next generation of chemicals, limiting dependency on traditional fuels, and discovering new ways to understand complex systems. We excel in energy research, a fundamental global resource and a touchstone for conflict when its supply is in doubt. It is pressing that we find alternatives to natural resources that are being used up as populations and industries grow. Our experts are guiding the UK strategy and at our Dalton Nuclear Institute, researching a range of renewable energy sources and are working closely with the national grid on delivering energy. Our fourth and fifth beacons, cancer and addressing global inequalities, focus directly on people. Our new Manchester Cancer Research Centre building with the Christie NHS Foundation Trust and Cancer Research UK provides researchers with outstanding facilities for conquering cancer, one of the most pernicious diseases of the 21st century. Our work is not only blue skies, and as just one example, a major endocrine therapy for breast cancer, anastrozole, was trialled at the university and has already benefited more than 1.5 million women globally. Our final research beacon, addressing global inequalities, reminds us that Nobel Prizes, citations of our research, and high rankings have little relevance to those at war, experiencing devastating natural disasters, in extreme poverty, or in major conflicts. We have one of the largest collections of researchers in poverty, disaster management, and in international development, which influence policymakers, organizations, and corporations to help people in crisis. We've just launched our Global Development Institute, including our groundbreaking Rory and Elizabeth Brooks Doctoral College. Our experts were an influential voice in the lead-up to the recent United Nations gathering in New York to agree long-term goals to eradicate world poverty. For each of these beacons and many more areas of outstanding research across the university, we also want to make sure that we make a real difference. Of course, we must grasp wider opportunities. One of the greatest of these is the devolution of powers and budgets to Greater Manchester, including the £6 billion annual budget for health. And Manchester is the first city outside of London to take control over transport, health, housing, planning, and police. This is attracting great attention, bringing visitors and investors to the region and helping us to address the imbalance in health and wealth between many parts of the north of England and some parts of the UK. Next year, we have an opportunity to showcase some of our research. We will host ESOF, Euroscience Open Forum, Europe's largest science conference, with many public activities as well as academic and business sessions. We chose as the title for the conference, Science as Revolution, in part reflecting the opportunities and challenges that we face in research and higher education in society in the 21st century, but also reflecting the great history of the City of Manchester and the university. In the next decade, it's important to maintain far-reaching visions that are understood and shared with you, our supporters, and more widely. We must explain clearly what difference our education makes to our students and what difference our research makes to the world, with the passion and conviction of those early Manchester scholars and inventors. We must be clear and focused about what we are doing, where we excel, and where the challenges are. Our students, our research, and our impact on society are the keys to our future. A future that must build on the revolutionary spirit of this great city, on our own history of success, and on our founders' vision, but which also looks forward with ambition. Our very personality is defined by this revolutionary spirit, impelling us to find solutions to some of the world's greatest challenges, while at the same time meeting the wider needs of society. This is Manchester. Here we break convention, we forge revolution, we try our best to make a difference. Thank you. I would now like to invite the Registrar and Secretary to invite Lemn Sissay onto the platform for the conferment of his honorary degree, the first of two honours for Lemn today. Professor Jeanette Winterson, the acclaimed writer and Professor of Creative Writing in our new Centre for New Writing, will present him.
I can't say anything serious wearing a ridiculous hat, so I've taken it off. President, Vice-Chancellor, and distinguished guests, Lemn Sissay today receives his honorary degree and is installed as Chancellor of this university. And as he wondered in the pages of The Guardian, like Lem, a radical Manchester invention, does this mean he will be shaking hands with himself? Well, yes, it does, because Lem is living many lives. He's a poet, a teacher, a campaigning activist, a broadcaster, an icon for young people, for black people, for kids who are in care, and for the dispossessed. Lem is a hands-on poet who reaches out to others, whether he's serving Christmas dinner to people who have never had a Christmas, or writing his 5 o'clock in the morning dawn tweets, or traveling to his nation home of Ethiopia to be a poet of peace. Lem is holding out his hand. And just now, this many-handed poet is a rebuke to those who believe that migrants come empty-handed, people we don't want in Britain. Lem's mother traveled from Ethiopia, pregnant with her son. She was bringing a gift into the UK, though she did not declare it. She was bringing through the borders of common sense what can't be predicted or quantified, what isn't statistical, what can't be got by quotas, the effect of a life on other lives. And Lemn Sissay stands in the bandwidth of the two most important poetic traditions across history and time. First, there's the oral tradition, that language starts in the mouth before it hits the page. Speak out, speak well, speak strong, speak true. That's what the poet can do. And he or she does that for the immediate community and for the wider world. Lem is a prime moving part of the comeback of the oral tradition in poetry, a tradition that celebrates language as vital and urgent communication. The poem as an alternative to karate chop headlines or political spin. This is poetry back at its roots as music without instruments, the human voice using rhyme and rhythm, modulation and lung power. What we call poetry is a way of turbocharging language to get more out of less. Poetry is energy efficient. And here at Manchester, home to so much scientific innovation, it's fitting that we should be installing as Chancellor an energy efficient poet. And here at Manchester, as Nancy's told us, birthplace of so much that's been radical in politics, trade unionism, women's suffrage, the anti-slavery movement, driving thought of Marx and Engels, it's right that we honour a poet in the second great tradition of poetry, to change the way that we think and act. A poem is political. William Blake knew that, Shelley knew that, Wordsworth, Milton, Yeats, Wilfred Owen, Seamus Heaney, Derek Walcott, James Baldwin, and those women, Bishop, Plath, Sexton, Rukeyser, throwing a brick at the powers that be, the status quo. And that includes the status quo of our thinking. Lemn Sissay is a poet who challenges the known. And he does it through a language that is simple, strong, insistent, persistent. But if a poem is sometimes a brick thrown through a plate glass window, well, some of Lem's poems are written on bricks, or stone, or floors. If you like a drink with your poem, nip down to Hardy's Well on the Wimslow Road. Lem's poem is on the gable end wall of the pub. Or go and read Lem on the inside fascia of Shoodle Station. Or take a pop at the Finance Boys down in the City of London. There's a great installation off Fenchurch Street called Gilt, G-I-L-T, Guilt of Cain. Well, you can guess what that's about. Because for Lemn Sissay, a poem is an object as well as a subject. It has dimension. Lem is a boy from the care system, something he's explored on TV, in his poems, and recently in a lovely wallpaper exhibition at London's Foundling Museum called Superman Was a Foundling. And as an adopted child myself, I know how important it is to believe that A, you can fly, and B, you can change the world, because God knows if the world treats you the way that it does, it needs saving. Lem found his identity and his voice through poetry, because poetry is a practical art with magical properties, by which I mean it grounds you at the same time as teaching you that if you don't stretch your wings, you'll never fly. Lem said that if you reach for the top of the tree, you might make the first branch, but if you reach for the stars, you get to the top of the tree. And young people need to feel that they are more to society than what Engels called useful objects. This university, Manchester, is a place to find your vision as well as your vocation. Lemn Sissay said, I had to be what I am. I couldn't be anything else, and I didn't want to be anything else. And that's a powerful message to our students. It's not false choices, it's not being cloned for industry, and it's not the X Factor hokum of follow your dream either. It's the hardest thing of all, to discover who you are and to make yourself happen in the world. It's a dynamic message, and that's the inspiration of Lemn Sissay, poet. So President, Vice-Chancellor, distinguished guests, I'm so pleased to present to you Lemn Sissay for the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa. Lem.
By the power vested in me by the university, and with great personal pleasure, I am pleased to confer on you the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It gives me great pleasure now to move on to the second honour for Lem, his installation as our Chancellor. Jeanette told us what an incredible life and career Lem has had so far, which some of you may have heard in his brilliant Desert Island Discs just last Sunday, and what an inspiration he has been for so many. I know that he's going to continue to be just as inspirational to all of us and the various groups that make up the university community, students, staff, alumni, and our external stakeholders. I'd like to just say a couple of words about the office of Chancellor, a very ancient one. The title Chancellor was used originally to describe the chief scribe or secretary of the emperor, something we won't be asking Lem to do. As the role evolved in imperial Rome, it was invested with judicial powers. Again, he won't get those. And the post holder was given the responsibility of supervising the other officers of the empire. It was with those august associations that the title passed through the Dark Ages into the institutional framework of medieval Europe, where a chancellor was a high officer of church or state or university. In some European jurisdictions, it remains today the highest office of all. In modern times in the UK, the Chancellor is the ceremonial head of the institution, and as such, acts as the high-profile figurehead and ambassador, working in our case with myself and other senior officers to promote the university's achievements and mission regionally, nationally, and internationally. The Chancellor plays a role in widening understanding and appreciation of what universities do in today's world and what his or her own university specifically stands for and stands out for. In other words, he or she acts as an advocate for higher education generally and for his or her own institution in particular. Characteristically, and it's the case here, it's the Pro-Chancellor who is the chair of the university's governing body, and a Vice-Chancellor, myself, who exercises executive authority. The role of Chancellor still remains crucial, and indeed those who take up the office are among the unsung heroes of higher education, giving as they do freely of their time and skills to generally support their institutions. The Chancellor chairs our General Assembly, which represents many of external stakeholders. He or she also presides at every ceremonial occasion that he's present. This is a term of office for 7 years, and not insubstantial time. And it cannot be held by anybody in the paid employment of the university. Incoming Chancellors are elected by members of the General Assembly, registered alumni, together with all university staff eligible to vote. And as you know, Lemn was chosen from an impressive shortlist. Beyond the ceremonial duties, each Chancellor shapes the role in the way that they feel they can best support the values and aspirations of the university. And as the highest office holder in the university, the Chancellor represents and expresses the enduring traditions upon which this university has been founded. To sum up, the Chancellor personifies the values and seriousness of purpose that universities such as ours stand out for. As I mentioned, we've been fortunate to have some eminent past Chancellors, Anna Ford, Sir Terry Leahy, and Tom Bloxham being the most recent. I've no doubt that Lemn will carry on in the same vein. Lemn is making a great commitment to this university, and we are honoured to be able to celebrate with him his installation as our Chancellor. And on behalf of the university, I extend to Lemn our warmest possible welcome. We hope that throughout his office, he will find satisfaction and enjoyment in contributing to the continuing success of this great institution. I would now like to invite Lemn to make his way back towards the platform as we formally mark his installation as our Chancellor. Lemn, it is my great honour to install you as Chancellor of the University of Manchester.
I'd like to thank you for being here today, and to thank both my honorary degree presenter, Jeanette, and Nancy, for their very kind words. It is a huge honour to receive an honorary doctorate and also to be installed as Chancellor of this great university. Indeed, it's a privilege to be following in the footsteps of previous Chancellors, such as Sir Terry Leahy, Anna Ford, and of course, Tom Bloxham. I've been a migrant since birth. Amongst the mills and mines of the Industrial Revolution in Wigan, just 20 minutes away, my first migration was from the womb into the open air. Then I migrated from one Lancashire village to another, new worlds. I migrated from junior school to comprehensive school, new horizons. Then, migrating from childhood to adulthood, I came to this great city. To Manchester. And I came with one aim, to learn, and through learning, to grow. And from this great city, as a writer, I have flown throughout the world, from the Library of Congress in the United States to the palace of His Imperial Majesty, the Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, from the Botanic Gardens of Singapore to the sonorous shores of Sri Lanka, from Wembley Football Stadium at the FA Cup final this year, by the way, to Maryland Football Stadium, from the theatres of India to the theatre of Dubai. I have flown to schools in Zurich, colleges in Virginia, taught teachers in Arizona and Addis Ababa, and children in Cameroon. I have attended each one of the Russell Group universities and many more in the United Kingdom. It is our responsibility, through learning and through risk-taking, to migrate in this way. It is our responsibility to populate new ideas, new territory. Migration is at the heart of who we are. It is the process, the action of learning. Those of you who have children will say to them as they become adults, "You have wings now, use them. Fly out into the world. It is yours." And you will wipe tears away as they stand, open their wings, turn their heads and say, "Goodbye," and take off into the distinct possibility of failure. To do this, they must defeat fear. Defeating fear is a central tenet of learning and discovery and growth. And those who are not defeated by failure are by default champions of learning. In the University of Manchester, we are surrounded by champions who faced fear, who broke new ground, who light the beacons above Manchester, Lancashire, the United Kingdom, and the world. Christabel Pankhurst, the first woman to graduate from the university in law, 1906, 110 years ago. In time, this is barely a great-grandfather away. She campaigned for votes for women, along with her mother, Emmeline, and her sister, Sylvia, and they have changed the culture of Britain and arguably the world. Champions. I still have the email from Helen Pankhurst requesting I march for the suffragettes in London. I have another from Helen requesting to see the film Suffragettes, which I attended as your Chancellor in Manchester only a couple of days ago. Great film, by the way. It's a great film. My mother, a woman, who knew? Came here from Ethiopia, as Jeanette said, pregnant, and she came here to study. You may not know this, but the Pankhurst family are as relevant in Ethiopia as they are here in Britain. Sylvia Pankhurst became very close friends with the Emperor Haile Selassie, and Richard Pankhurst, her son, is a learned academic on Ethiopian history, a professor of the University of Addis Ababa. And it's important to say their name, the Pankhurst name here, and to stretch my hand from this incredible university to his, and to hold and strengthen our connections with the Pankhurst and with Ethiopia. Thank you, Ambassador, for being here. The Pankhurst must be proud to know that the university where Christabel attained a degree in law and yet could not practice law is run by Professor Rothwell. I'd like to stop here for a moment, if you don't mind, and kind of take a picture, a selfie. So Nancy, would you join me, please? Thank you. Thank you. So we'll just put this up here, and I'll return that there. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. I'm now just going to tweet that. If you don't mind, I'm tweeting it now. How do you do this? That's the best way. I took about 4 pictures then, and I'm going to say, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? The greatest place on earth. The greatest place on earth. What a beautiful tweet. Hashtag, yeah, hashtag, I'll be a while. Hashtag UOM. Yeah, I'll just leave it at you. I was going to put UOM Sissay, but I'll put UOM just because that's how we roll. And yeah, tweet, press send. I'm pressing send. There's more communication, more learning in our world now than since the beginning of time. The butterfly effect can be traced back to a tweet. I concur with Nancy. The revolution is now the immediate, fierce, unstoppable population of subjects. A revolution of learning. Information is power. Press send, the 5 beacons of learning. Information is power. Research, the 5 beacons of research shine bright from the inspirational spires of this university. Press send, bringing the best minds together to search for innovative solutions for some of the world's biggest problems. Press send, with expertise that helps tackle inequalities people face across the globe. Press send. With expertise, we are developing advanced materials for the most extreme environments and the most familiar. Press send. Our research is already transforming systems that bring energy to our home across the world. We are helping to create a world in which more of us survive cancer. Press send. The tweet has already migrated. It's already flown across the world. It's populated without visa or border controls and without baggage allowance. Think of these words as flying throughout the world via the live feed, and think of migration as natural, as a celebration of human nature. India, China, America, the Middle East, Africa, Russia, Australia, all find a place in the University of Manchester, a place to grow in wisdom, humanity, and knowledge. As a man brought up in the Lancashire of Jeanette, I am proud to say to her, from me, the boy from the children's homes, to her, the adopted girl, that these robes that I am so proud to wear are wings. As Nancy said in her address, the University of Manchester has come a long way since 2004, and we are now facing exciting but no doubt challenging times. I hope I can contribute to the university's ongoing success over the next 7 years. I'd like to end by showing you a film that we made here of me reciting a kind of mashup of poems. I hope that that's the only time the word mashup will be mentioned from this podium. And I hope it encapsulates how the honor of being Chancellor of this great university makes me feel, and how I believe everyone who has contact with it feels.
Open the dawn in the open sky, the laboratory, open the book, open the challenge with open eyes. Open, out, look. Open all minds, open all dreams, research, question, open all doors, open all senses, open all defenses. Ask, what were these closed for? In the possibilities of light, the nature of trust, the strength of unassailable us. How strong the night lies as light aerates the dark, and atomic dreams multiply from a graphene heart. We who have walked the world in the name of here and where we came from, stand in this great city and say, I belong here. I belong. I bring my past, I bring my future, I bring my rights and I bring my song. I stand atop the University of Manchester. We belong here. We belong.
Distinguished guests, our Chancellor, Lemn Sissay.
It is with great pleasure that I now perform my first official duty as Chancellor, which is to honor 4 distinguished individuals with the conferment of honorary doctorates. In just a moment, the Registrar and Secretary will escort the first of our honorary graduands, Baroness Joan Bakewell, onto the platform, where Professor Alistair Burns will present her. Professor Dame Athene Donald will then be escorted onto the platform, and Professor Steve Watts will present her. Next, the Registrar and Secretary will escort Sir Nicholas Heitner, and Professor Maggie Gale will present him. Finally, Dame Janet Smith will be presented by Professor Anise Ishmael. Before the ceremony ends, Dame Janet will address the congregation on behalf of all 5 honorary graduates, including myself. So it is with real pleasure that I now invite the Registrar and Secretary to escort the first of our honorary graduands onto the platform for the conferment of her honorary degree of Doctor of Letters honoris causa.
Chancellor, distinguished guests, Joan Bakewell is an iconic figure in journalism and the arts and has been a passionate advocate for a number of causes throughout her distinguished career. She's widely recognised as one of the UK's most important and influential journalists, and it's a great privilege for me to present this citation. Joan Dawson Rowland was born in Stockport, intriguingly in Bakewell Street, under the shadow of the Blitz. She went to Stockport Grammar School, the first girl in the school to receive a scholarship to Cambridge University, where she studied economics and then history at Newnham College. She then moved to London, starting her early career as a studio manager with the BBC, then on to advertising, where, as a portent for the future, she learnt, and I quote, to put a few words together persuasively. Baroness Bakewell described in her autobiography in 2003 how things were back then in the 70s. It was at that time that Joan really began to make her mark by becoming one of the first women presenters on television, particularly in the arts and current affairs on late-night lineup. She was told that women were not allowed to be newsreaders. As it was said, they lacked the consistency, authority, and reliability to hold an audience. In present company, these words saying out loud just make me feel so nervous. It's fair to say that Joan broke the mould. She became the BBC television's art correspondent, winning many awards over the years. She has, with good humour, commitment, intellect, and a significant dose of glamour, made a real mark, and her determination is clearly apparent. As an example, in the 1970s, she sought permission to write a book about television, and at the time was told no one would regard Joan Bakewell as being remotely qualified, either by experience or intellect, to produce a book of any substance. This must go down as one of the most ill-judged quotes of all time. Joan went ahead and wrote the book anyway. And I think she is one of the champions that our new Chancellor has mentioned. She's a writer for many newspapers. The columns are eclectic. In The Guardian most recently, telling the old to move is no substitute for a coherent housing policy, and reminding us that the epithet LOL actually means love our language. She also raised a glass to Dry January earlier this year. In 2008, then, Dame Joan Bakewell was appointed Champion of the Elderly, which drew appreciation and universal plaudits. Joan Bakewell's role at breaking down gender barriers in the past was ideal to fit this new role. The recognition of her singular contributions to the field of arts and journalism has been recognised with honorary degrees from 11 universities. She was made a Commander of the British Empire in 1999, a Dame in 2008, and in January 2011, she took her seat in the Lords as Baroness Bakewell of Stockport. In a recent interview describing her life and work, she looked back to her upbringing in Stockport, the fact that she had been to elocution lessons to temper but not completely suppress her northern accent. Although she's lived in London for all her adult life, she took the name of her native Stockport. She said she inherited the grit and willpower of northern women. So when we talk about the Northern Powerhouse, we know what we're referring to now. More recently, Joan has turned her attention to specific matters concerning older people, and in particularly memory loss, including her own fears and how she is wondering that her own memory lapses may develop into something further. I think her quote as a strategy to prevent dementia, my own area of interest, sets the scene perfectly. A network of obligations that keeps me busy and committed is keeping me on track. If dementia looms, I simply haven't the time to notice. Chancellor, I'm very pleased to present to you Joan Bakewell for the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the University and with great personal pleasure, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
Thank you so much. What a great pleasure. What a great pleasure. Your first occasion.
Yes, it is.
Wonderful.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Sorry, my fault. It's okay. It's all right.
Chancellor, distinguished guests, today is a very special day for the University and the School of Physics and Astronomy. It is our opportunity to honour the achievements of Professor Dame Athene Donald, FRS, for her outstanding contributions to science. Athene was born in North London. Her parents did not go to university, although she was brought up in a house which included her maternal grandfather, who studied classics at Cambridge. She was surrounded by books and with the expectation that if she wanted to go to university, she should. Her mother says she declared at 7 she was going to Cambridge to study maths. However, it was an inspiring teacher at school who, in an early physics class at the age of 13, made her realize almost immediately that this was the subject she wanted to study. She attended Girton College, Cambridge, where she obtained her BA and PhD. Her PhD involved the study of metals using electron microscopy. Her first postdoc position at Cornell University did not go well. It was when she changed to applying electron microscopy to plastics that she, in her own words, fell in love with it. It's been her mastery of environmental scanning electron microscopy, which allows the study of samples without dehydration, that's been the key to her work. She then returned to the UK and, after a Royal Society Research Fellowship, became the first woman to be appointed to a lectureship at the Cavendish Laboratory at Cambridge in 1985. She followed her passion, which at the time was very unfashionable, the study of soft matter in its natural state, plastic, plants, and food. Her work has laid the foundation for exploring relationships between structure, properties, and processing in a wide range of squidgy materials. Asked how she dealt with the unfriendly attitude to her work, she said, "I kept my head down and got on with it." Good advice. Her vision was rewarded by the Charles Vernon Boys Prize of the Institute of Physics in 1989, the Rosenheim Medal and Prize from the Institute of Materials in 1995, and she became Professor of Experimental Physics in 1998 and was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society in 1999. Her honours are so many, I will only mention 2 more. She became a Dame of the British Empire in 2010 and was only the second UK woman to be awarded the L'Oréal UNESCO Awards for Women in Science in 2009. I want to give another quote from Athene. "I don't do things by halves. If I do something, I have to throw myself into it." She has followed her own advice as a champion of diversity in science, especially campaigning for better representation and promotion of women. She was director of Women in Science, Engineering and Technology Initiative from 2007 to 14, chair of the Athena Forum from from 2009 to 13, is patron of the Daphne Jackson Trust, member of the Equality and Diversity Network of the Royal Society from 2009 to 13, and Gender Equality Champion for Cambridge University 2010 to 14. You'll notice that all those, some of those are finished, but she keeps busy. She's currently the Master of Churchill College, Cambridge, and President of the British Science Association. She's also a trustee of the Science Museum Group and a member of the Scientific Council of the European Research Council. She was once asked about Dorothy Hodgkin's Nobel Prize and whether there will be another one in the next 50 years, and whether gender would matter to the Nobel Prize. And she replied very wisely, "Well, I can always be hopeful, but the reality is that in physics, the problem starts young. We can't get 50-50 Nobel Prize winners until we solve the problem at school." Only 5% of the Thomson Reuters Hall of Laureates for Physics are women. These have all been added in the last decade. Deborah Lynn, Leni Howe, and Vera Rubin were added in 2015, 2012, and 2008. They got there entirely due to their own work as the result of very highly cited publications. I want to mention one, Vera Rubin, for her work on galaxy rotation rates, which is the smoking gun for dark matter, has been overlooked for decades in terms of a Nobel laureate. And although the people who won recently were much deserving, I'm still disappointed that Vera Rubin has been overlooked again. So if you're on the committee, please help. Athene's comment on schools gets to the heart of the issue. In 2010, CERN, the European Laboratory for Particle Physics near Geneva, ran a scheme with local primary schools around their site on the French-Swiss border. They asked the children to draw a physicist and comment on what they thought a physicist did. 400 children in the ages of sort of 7 to 11 produced 800 drawings, and you can find them on the web, and they're a delight. I really do recommend them to you. And interestingly, only one has an eccentric-looking man in the drawing. The rest are images of young people of both genders, and in many cases, both genders in the same image. I especially like the one drawn by 10-year-old Chloe from Thoire, which has a young man and a young woman talking to one another. Now, of course, this is a drawing, so the words are in cartoon bubbles. And I must say, if you look at the original French, it is very poetic. However, I would really destroy it if I were to pronounce it. So I will translate it for you. The young man is saying, "I like being a physicist." The young woman replies, "Also women can be physicists." So I think she's made a good point there. Chloe also has a fantastic explanation of what physicists do. The work of a physicist is to find the secrets of nature. Isn't that wonderful? So we are going to repeat the exercise that CERN did in 2010 next year in Manchester schools around us here, when Manchester is the European City of Science. I think from this you can see that attitudes in society on gender roles are changing, and the key thing is they need to change in the schools. So to conclude, Athene is a role model as an outstanding female scientist. In addition, through her leadership, she's made key contributions to the equality and diversity culture in the higher education sector. Athene has made a significant impact on the better representation and progression of women in science, technology, engineering, maths, and medicine, so-called STEM subjects. So, Chancellor, I am very pleased to present to you Athene Donald for the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
It's for you. By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the university and with great personal pleasure, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
Chancellor, and distinguished guests. Born in Didsbury, Manchester in 1956, educated at Manchester Grammar School and Cambridge University, Nick Hytner is known as being provocative as well as fluently politic. A list of his professional achievements reads like the careers of a dozen men, not just one. Amongst the most prolific and successful 20th century UK theatre, film and opera directors, he has a wealth of prestigious accolades, including a BAFTA, Evening Standard, Olivier, New York Drama Desk and Tony Awards. Knighted in 2010, Nick Hytner has been visiting professor and honorary fellow at Oxford and Cambridge universities and is a member of the board of the Royal Opera House and of the BBC. The list of his theatre and film productions is astonishing and includes Miss Saigon, which ran for a decade both here in the UK and in the US, the stage and film versions of The Madness of King George III, The History Boys, and the spectacular adaptation of Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials, and of course the thrilling One Man and Two Governors in 2011. Nick has worked in many of the UK's regional theatres, including the RSC and of course the Royal Exchange in Manchester, where he was an associate director in the 1980s. An associate director of the National Theatre from 1990, he began his 12-year tenure there as artistic director in 2003. Nick Hytner revolutionised the National Theatre. Some say he restored its sense of purpose. In addition to his own directing, he nurtured and developed new work and bucked the general trend of subsidised arts organisations, creating productions which transferred to the commercial sector, feeding economically back into the, at times, radical programming of one of the largest subsidised theatres in Europe. He generated a robust balance sheet, more than tripling the National Theatre's income between 2000 and 2013. But of course, Nick Hytner's period at the helm achieved much, much more than this. A theatre director works with actors, performers, and large numbers of theatre workers. An artistic director has to do far more. They have to be able to run a large and complex organisation without in any way negatively exposing its complexities. They have to manage huge budgets, as well as be innovative and prepared to take all sorts of calculated creative risks with public money and with other people's careers. As an artistic director of the National Theatre has to acknowledge the best practice and lessons of the past, think strategically about the future, however difficult that might be, and yet live firmly in the present, delivering the best to his constituents, working hard to foster new talent and support and challenge established staff. When he took up the reins at the National Theatre, Nick Hytner's vision was to democratise the institution and to find ways of appealing to a wider audience demographic, not just the largely moneyed middle-aged middle classes. This he swiftly achieved through the subsidised TravelX ticket scheme, with seats reduced to £10 in the first season, and through the inauguration of the NT Live broadcast from 2009. His strategic thinking expanded access to the theatre's work beyond what anyone had imagined possible. The NT Live project in particular has been called by theatre critic Michael Billington one of the most revolutionary things to have happened to the theatre in our lifetimes. As well as producing plays from the classical repertoire with his own numerous Shakespeare productions such as Othello and Timon of Athens finding acclaim, Nick commissioned works from a new diverse community of creative artists. A team player, he has had numerous fruitful collaborations and artistic partnerships with organisations like the Lowry, actors like Simon Russell Beale and Francis de la Tour, the writer Alan Bennett, and has run the National Theatre and now the London Theatre Company with executive director Nick Starr. He's known as self-effacing, but intellectually razor-sharp, deeply knowledgeable about his craft, inventive, and passionate about the difference that the arts can make to civic life. Nick Hytner's commercial hits in his early 30s earned him the time and space to make real choices about what he directed, where, and for whom. And it's to his credit that he turned to the subsidised sector and completely reconceptualised what it might achieve. Believing that theatre should be at the heart, at the centre of cultural discourse, Nick Hytner has always been prepared to take risks. Hot on the heels of his new film of Bennett's The Lady in the Van, he's in the process of opening with Nick Starr the London Theatre Company's new venue in spring 2017. With the idea of galvanising talent, this is the venture of a true theatre impresario who thrives on the fact that theatre is always more than the sum of its parts. From a young boy playing with a toy theatre in his bedroom to becoming the director of hit productions across continents and art forms, Nick Heitner is a practitioner and patron of the arts, the like of which we may not see again in our lifetimes. An artist and an entrepreneur with a genuinely proactive social conscience. With his already established arts and educational connections in Manchester, we are delighted that Nick Heitner can add the University of Manchester to his expansive list of friends, admirers, collaborators in the Northwest. Chancellor and distinguished guests, I'm very pleased to present to you Nicholas Heitner for the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the university, and with great personal pleasure, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
Thank you. Thank you. Everything you've done.
Chancellor, distinguished guests, Manchester has honoured many women lawyers, perhaps most famous being Christabel Pankhurst, which Lemn told us about, who with her mother and sister was active in the suffragette movement. Graduating in 1906 with honours in law, Christabel was never allowed to practice as a barrister because she was a woman. The representation of women in the legal profession is still contested, as recent remarks by Lord Justice Sumption make clear. He cautioned against rushing to put more women in senior judicial positions, saying that such a move could put off talented male candidates and destroy the delicate balance of the legal system. Well, Janet Smith is an outstanding example of why it is such a good thing that the delicate balance of the legal profession is disrupted. Janet Hilary Holt was born in Stockport in 1940 and attended Bolton School. She did well at school and won a place at Girton College, Cambridge to read science. But she didn't take it up, deciding at the age of 19 to get married to Edward Smith, by whom she had 2 sons and a daughter. In 1984, she married again, this time to Robin Matheson, who has joined her today, a now retired economics teacher at a Royal School. She was well into her 20s before she began to study law through a correspondence course. She was 32 when she was called to the bar at Lincoln's Inn in 1972. She practiced in Manchester for 20 years, specializing in personal injury and clinical negligence cases. After being appointed a QC in 1986, she led a public inquiry into reported abuse of autistic children at Scottsford House in Lancaster. She was appointed a High Court judge in 1992, and in 2002 was only the 4th woman to be appointed to the Court of Appeal. She's best known for her work on the Shipman inquiry, where I worked with her for 5 years as a medical advisor. I had been selected as a medical advisor to the predecessor inquiry after Harold Shipman, a GP in Hyde, had been found guilty of murdering 15 of his patients. A huge number of families were furious when it transpired that the government were only planning a limited inquiry and challenged the Secretary of State through a judicial review. They won their case, and the government was forced to set up a fully fledged public inquiry and had to appoint a senior judge to chair the inquiry. It opened my eyes to the closed shop that existed at the higher echelons of government and how they made these appointments. A range of senior judges were approached. They were all of the pale, male, and stale variety. Luckily, they all declined or said terms that were unacceptable. When the name of Janet Smith was brought up, a senior civil servant commented to me, "My goodness, what an outstanding person. Why haven't we heard about her before?" I could have provided an answer. Woman, clever, from the north. I was delighted when she agreed to keep me on as a medical advisor. Although, like most judges, little of substance has seeped out about her politics, she is seen in legal circles as a social liberal. She specialized in personal injury and medical negligence cases, often on behalf of clients perceived to be underdogs. As a judge, she approved a £500 million settlement for a group of former miners suffering from a condition known as white finger caused by the operation of machinery. When she arrived in Manchester to chair the shipment inquiry, she told the relatives, "I shall do my utmost to put an end to the uncertainty which has prevailed for so long and which has caused such distress. There will be several hundred deaths in which I can say yes or no, and I hope that I will give a sense of closure to the families." In the end, she determined that shipment killed 215 people, also stating that there was a real suspicion that he had murdered as many as 260 people. She never found any real motive for Shipman's killings, but said, "It is possible that he was addicted to killing. He betrayed his patient's trust in a way and to an extent that I believe is unparalleled in history." The legacy of the inquiry is, however, what Janet will be remembered for. Although I know that she's disappointed because she feels that many of her recommendations have not been implemented, she has already managed to get the GMC to be completely transformed from an organization that was primarily concerned with protecting doctors to one which has a much greater patient focus. She forced the GMC to separate their adjudication function from their investigative function and to reform the nature and purpose of the council. She has transformed the revalidation system for doctors, stopping the system that was going to be implemented and making it a system that truly attempts to assess a doctor's fitness to practice. She has reformed the system of death certification and modernized the way that doctors complete cremation certificates. And she has brought increased safeguards to the prescribing and distribution of controlled drugs. It is sad that reforms that she recommended for the reform of the coroner system have still not been implemented because of cuts made by the previous coalition government. It will not surprise me if her recommendations continue to be offered as solutions to many enduring problems in the health service for many more years. During the inquiry, there was an occasion when Janet came to me in obvious distress from a severe back pain and sought my advice as the only doctor on the inquiry. It transpired that she had injured her back going down a water slide with one of her grandchildren whilst on holiday. Trying not to be ageist, I said, "Janet, you can't do things like that." "Why not?" was her response. It is a suitable descriptor of a guiding principle as she tore up years of ineffective regulation, monitoring, and complacency in the medical profession to put in place a modern and effective framework for the regulation of the medical profession. Why not? Chancellor, I am very pleased to present to you Janet Smith for the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
Are we going to do no. By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the university and with great personal pleasure, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa. Shall we do it?
Sorry about the dancing.
We said we'd do it, didn't we?
Chancellor, distinguished guests, what a wonderful event. Feel slightly concerned at the quality of what has gone before and what I have to follow. I think today has been a truly inspirational event. I have the pleasure and the duty and the trial and tribulation, I suppose because my surname comes later in the alphabet than anybody else's, of speaking on behalf of all the honorary graduates, including the Chancellor, which is slightly unnerving. I was looking at us, thinking about us as a group, and I noticed a few things we have in common. First of all, I think all of us will have been embarrassed by the extravagant things that have been said about us, and which we have to stand here and listen to and keep a fairly straight face.
I certainly was. I think probably the others were too. But other things we have in common. First, have you noticed the strong local connection? Pace, Athena, there is 4 of us from the north. 4 of us born within a few miles of this room. Indeed, I think Nick could probably count the distance from here to his birthplace in terms of yards rather than miles. Joan Bakewell and I both come from Stockport. I don't think she remembers me, but I know that we both used to stand at the same bus stop opposite the Rising Sun in Hazel Grove, waiting to catch the bus or indeed the tram to school in Stockport. Yes? Yeah. In the rain, and worse too. Manchester is a small world, and I must just mention while Nick is here how sorry I am that his father, Ben, isn't here to see him. I would greatly have enjoyed seeing him again. He was my head of chambers for many years in Byrom Street in Manchester. The next thing I noticed about us is, of course, that we are a majority of women. How rare that must be, I think, at a ceremony like this. I think all 3 of us must have felt at times disadvantaged by our gender in the course of our professional lives. Most of us, I think all of us, will have been accustomed to being the only woman at the table on many occasions. But for me, at any rate, I don't know about the others, but as time went on, I began to feel that the rarity value of being a woman, certainly a woman when it came to the time when I might be eligible to be a judge, was a positive advantage. I think 3 out of 5 of us on a day like this is a matter for celebration and a matter for congratulation of the university. The third thing I noticed is that I think the Chancellor and I have something in common. Anise has made a brief reference to the fact that I didn't go to university. I think neither the Chancellor nor I have a proper, or what my husband calls a proper degree, the sort that you have to work for and sweat over. Now, I suspect that somebody who's enjoyed such a stellar career as the Chancellor would never feel a sense of inferiority. But I have. Oh, he says yes. Well, there you are. I have all my life about that very shortcoming in my life, not having a proper degree. When I was called to the bar, you could take what was called the bar exams. I have to tell you, they were pretty noddy. You could take them externally, and that meant, for me, that I could stay at home and look after the children at the same time. That was a good thing in a way. As Anise said, I did correspondence courses, but I missed a huge amount. It really brought it home to me how much I had missed looking at that little film that we saw at the beginning of the ceremony today. The inspiration, the encouragement, and the sense of flying and escaping and making the most of your potential, which it can be inculcated by inspirational members of staff. You see, if I'd come here to read law, I would have gone to lectures by that God of God, light of lights, Professor Harry Street, Many of you may never have heard of him, but as far as I was concerned, he was the epitome of all that should be in an exponent of the law of torts. I'm sure as a lecturer, certainly as a writer of a textbook, which is all I had, how much I missed. And I have felt conscious of it all my life. Correspondence courses get you there, but you miss so much. For example, one of my most embarrassing moments came about as a result of not having had a decent legal education. I was in the Court of Appeal. I'd been at the bar for about 3 years, and I had the temerity to suggest that a judge of the Manchester County Court had fallen into error. I was making a submission which was plainly quite untenable on the grounds that there was legal precedent against me, a fact I seemed, I'm afraid, to be unaware of at the time. However, the presiding Lord Justice McGaw, seemed extremely old and very authoritative, of course. He had a voice like ground glass, and he came from Northern Ireland. Well, I won't attempt his accent, but what he said to me eventually was something like this: "But Mrs. Smith, jurisprudentially, you just can't say that." And I realized to my horror that I didn't know what the word jurisprudence meant. Well, I did by the end of the day, but it was a bit late. Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, I am hugely grateful and honored for the recognition that you have given me. I am sure, indeed I know, that my fellow graduates will feel the same way, but probably not quite as passionately as I do, because I do feel that the honor you have done me today goes some way towards making up for what I missed earlier on. Thank you very much on behalf of the team.
Doctors Bakewell, Donald, Heitner and Smith, on behalf of the university, I would like to extend our warmest congratulations on your honorary doctorates and to offer each of you our very best wishes for the future. I now declare the ceremony closed.